Hello, my name is Stephen Murray, and this is the Knoll, an online gathering place for the people of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church and a place to tell our community stories. If you've come to more than one service at Oak Knoll, you've likely come across the music of John Hermanson, if not John Hermanson himself. I got to sit down with John and talk to him about where he finds inspiration and what the service means to him. We've been doing your Isaiah service for years.
Yeah.
How did that idea come about, and what was the process for creating that service?
Well, I started working with Isaiah, I think at the request of Pastor Paul, so many years ago, and it was sort of take a look at this passage, see if there's anything that could be set to music for this Sunday, and then I just started collecting a lot of different Isaiah pieces, and the more I was engaged with the text, the more I realized there's so much stuff here that can be used and hasn't been used in our liturgies and songs. So I was kind of gathering them all up, and they eventually became the recording that I made some years ago, the Isaiah record. And then when I found myself at Holden Village, I think it was 2017, was the first summer that I was there as an artist in residence, and I kind of sat down with them, and I was working on some new Isaiah, and just realizing that there was so much connecting them all together, and that spoke to that community specifically. You know, it's very remote community up in the wilderness, and there's so much wilderness language in Isaiah, and so much about how to be a community together. And so there was a village pastor that summer. The first summer I was there was a man named Josh Graber, who basically he had just had a meeting with the leaders of Holden at the time, and he came back from it and said, "Looks like we're doing your Isaiah service next week." And so, it was great. It was a great push, but I was very, very stressed out. But luckily there were 4 people there who. We just kind of had this team that we collaborated in a really great way. Like I had all of the sort of, original inspiration materials there. And then there were other people that had, the ability to work a word processor and like how to notate it better than I. And it was one of those rare, very stressful times up at Holden Village where we had a deadline. It was really good to have that because that's where we formed the first sort of version of it. And then I think it was 2 years later then that we decided we wanted to do it here at Oak Knoll. So then I kind of sat down with it and reworked parts that, weren't quite flowing and just tried to find a way to connect all the pieces together in a way that made sense for our community here. Had a lot of help from Patty at that point too, for Patty Bjorklund for notating. And I mean, that's always the trick for me, is like the fun part is finding the text and working with it and bringing it to music. And then the really hard part for me is figuring out, is this going to be singable? How do we present it in a way that makes it easy to learn? I think part of that is that I'm just I'm so close to it that I can't tell myself if it's easy or hard to sing or how. So all along the way, it's just been really great to have a lot of people influencing it in terms of just the technical aspects, but also the theological aspects. I remember when Josh Graber, we were talking about my Isaiah, and he said, you don't have any of the Isaiah 3 stuff on this record. And I said, what's Isaiah 3? And then he educated me as to what that is. And now that's what I'm working on, because I think it starts with book 58 or so, but it's, in fact, the fast we choose is from that which is one of the pieces in the liturgy. It's been great to sort of benefit from the pool of knowledge, I guess, that, and the theologians, I didn't go to seminary myself, and so I'm just constantly talking to people about Isaiah, and especially the ones that are very interested in it. And so the whole liturgy to me is kind of like a group effort in a lot of ways. It's, starting with everybody that raised me up in the church, and I really have appreciated over the years pastors kind of pointing out texts either directly to me or just preaching on them. I remember when Jay, I think he had just started here, and he preached on Isaiah 5 and wove it in with 25, I believe. And then I ended up doing the same thing because it just made a lot of sense. And it was, a lot of the inspiration really comes from sermons or conversations about texts, or, and it just seems like it's a never-ending task, which I love. It's very exciting to think about how much time I could spend in Isaiah still. It's just a very central book. When Jesus spoke for the first time and began his ministry in his hometown, he read one line from Isaiah 58. And it seems like he's kind of referencing Isaiah almost every time he opens his mouth. It just seems like a very important book for him.
You've written the whole service.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like to have people come and sing your music and you're then responsible for their whole experience?
It's difficult to... Right. Yeah, the trick with liturgy writing in general is just, the word liturgy means work of the people. And so it feels like a great responsibility, and one that I almost sometimes don't feel qualified for, because you're sort of, when I sing songs and write songs for myself, it's clear who sings them, and it's just me, and it can kind of be anything, and it can be challenging rhythmically or whatever. When you bring it to a group and thinking about the meaning of liturgy itself, which is the work of the people, it just feels like it should be almost them bringing it. And so it feels like you're putting words into their mouth. And I guess that's a large part why I like to stick to the text instead of trying to write my own stuff. That's part of it. But the other reason for that, I think, is that we don't often do that. We don't often stick to these texts. And there's so many texts in Isaiah that are very poetic and singable. It's an easy thing to do that. But yeah, that's sort of the main thing in my head when I'm working on it and trying to figure out how it all fits together. Is this something that's going to sit well with everyone else that they can relate to? And it is a strange thing to be providing the text for the people. So it's sort of like being the one who finds the text for the community, I guess. And I that's something I just take very seriously and am constantly wondering. And I mean, often it's even an interesting experience where you find a text that seems to kind of push some boundaries that you're not really aware of, and then you realize, sometimes I'll set something to music and I'd say, is this okay to sing at church? Is this going to? But then you realize it's just from the Bible. It's straight from there, and so that I find really exciting. There's passages where God says, "I hate your solemn assemblies and your praise songs and stuff," and so that's sort of like, well, how do I deal with that, or can you put that in? Yeah, I've actually struggled with that passage, trying to put it to music, because it's just kind of like that irony there. But yeah, that's been how to write music for yourself, and then how to write music for others to sing. Those are very different disciplines. Writing music for other people is something that I've had to really, I guess I started in the mid-90s, but that's a skill that I've really had to kind of develop, and it feels like it's a different place that your brain goes when you're doing that.
What's it like for you now to be up in front of people leading worship?
I really enjoy leading it, and in fact, it's the kind of thing that has to be done in a group now. I would never sit in a room and do it by myself, and so. But it's a really inspiring experience when the congregation starts to own it and take it on as their own. And I've experienced that here very strongly, and also up at Christicon. And the even better experience is where somebody sends a recording from Holden Village, and they're still doing one of the pieces from that, and they've sort of, over time, it morphs into something else, and it becomes their own, and I love that. I just... Some years ago, actually, my first liturgy, Is This the Feast liturgy, the Holden Winter group decided to do it for Lent, and somebody sent me a video of them doing it. And until that point, I had only done it on a single acoustic guitar. I'd been the only person that had led it. I was actually brought to tears watching them, because it was so different from from the way that I do it. And it just was like exactly what I wanted, which was for it to be a liturgy that could be changed according to the community that's doing it. So they had, 5 cellos and just a bunch of drums and probably 30 people playing music and 60 people worshiping, and so it was like this really much faster and more lively kind of version of this liturgy that I'd written. And that's really what it's all about to me, is can I write the bare bones of something that different communities can take and make their own. one big thing I really want to communicate is just how important Oak Knoll has been to my development as a musician and really a spiritual person. I mean, it's just amazing to me that I've been here for something like 20 years, or going on 20 years, I think. It's a long way to drive across the city, and I always thought, I don't know how long I'll be doing this or something, but now I wouldn't miss it when I'm around. It just is, I've just really appreciated the support and it just feels like people have really welcomed me and over the years. And I mean, it's really hard to imagine that I would have this amount of music without, been involved at Oak Knoll. Having the support and getting that sort of immediate feedback there is something here, keep doing this, So I really appreciate that.
The Knoll is a production of Oak Knoll Lutheran Church in Minnetonka, Minnesota. Pastor Jay Rudy, Senior Pastor. Music performed by Matt Serrar and produced by me, Stephen Murray. If you would like to learn more about Oak Knoll Lutheran Church, please visit us on the web at oklutheran.org or check out the live stream of our Sunday worship on YouTube every week at 9:30 Central. If you would like to share your story as part of the Knoll podcast, you can find information on how to get involved on our website. Thanks for listening, and God bless.